London-Sydney Marathon. The London-Sydney Marathon was a car rally from the United Kingdom to Australia. It was first run in 1968, a second event by the same organizers was run in 1977, and a third in 1993 to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the original. Three further rallies have subsequently been contested in 2000, 2004, and 2014. The 1968 event inspired different organizers to create the 1970 London to Mexico World Cup Rally, the 1974 London-Sahara-Munich World Cup Rally, and the Dakar Rally. The original 1968 event was won by Andrew Cowan, Colin, Malkin, and Brian Coyle, driving a Hillman Hunter. 56 cars finished. 1968. Background. The route. An 8-man organizing committee was established to create a suitably challenging but navigable route. Jack Sears, organizing secretary, and himself a former racing driver, plotted a 7,000 miles 11,000 km course covering 11 countries in as many days, and arranged that the P&O liner SS Chusan would ferry the first 72 cars and their crews on the 9-day voyage from India before the final 2,600 miles. The remaining crews departed Bombay at 3:00 on Thursday 5 December, arriving in Fremantle at 10:00 on Friday 13 December before they restarted in Perth the following evening. Any repairs attempted on the car during the voyage would lead to the crew's exclusion. Result: Roger Clark established an early lead through the first genuinely treacherous leg from Sivas to Erzincan in Turkey, averaging almost 60 mph 100 km/h in his Lotus Cortina for the 170 miles 270 km stage. Despite losing time in Pakistan and India, he maintained his lead to the end of the Asian section in Bombay, with Simo Lampinen's Ford Taunus second and Lucian Bianchi's DS21 in third. However, once into Australia, Clark suffered several setbacks. A piston failure dropped him to third and would have cost him a finish had he not been able to cannibalize fellow Ford Motor Company driver Eric Jackson's car for parts. After repairs were effected, he suffered what should have been a terminal rear differential failure. Encountering a Cortina by the roadside, he persuaded the initially reluctant owner to sell his rear axle and resumed once more, although at the cost of 80 minutes delay while it was replaced. This left Lucian Bianchi and co-driver Jean-Claude Auger in the Citroën DS in the lead ahead of Gilbert Stiepelaar/Simo Lampinen in the German Ford Taunus, with Andrew Cowan in the Hillman Hunter third. And Stiepelaar's Taunus hit a gate post, breaking a track rod. This left Cowan in second position and Paddy Hopkirk's Austin 1800 in third place. Approaching the Nora checkpoint at the end of the penultimate stage with only 98 miles, 158 km to Sydney, the Frenchmen were involved in a head-on collision with a motorist who mistakenly entered a closed course, wrecking their Citroën DS and hospitalizing the pair. Hopkirk, the first driver on the scene ahead of Cowan on the road, but behind on penalties, stopped to tend to the injured and extinguish the flames in the burning cars. Andrew Cowan, next on the scene, also slowed but was waved through with the message that everything was under control. Hopkirk rejoined the rally, and neither he nor Cowan lost penalties in this stage. So Andrew Cowan, who had requested a car to come last from the Chrysler factory on the assumption that only half a dozen drivers would even reach Sydney, took victory in his Hillman Hunter and claimed the £10,000. Hopkirk finished second, while Australian Ian Vaughan was third in a factory-entered Ford XT Falcon GT. Ford Australia won the team's prize with their 3 Falcons GT, placing third, sixth, and eighth. 1977. The success of the 1968 marathon spawned the World Cup rallies, although, after the controversial 1974 event, no further World Cup event would be held. While the original event was to prove a triumph for the Roots Group, the 1977 edition, this time sponsored by Singapore Airlines, was dominated by Mercedes-Benz. The German Mark claimed a 1-2 finish, and had two other cars in the top 8, with Andrew Cowan in a 280e repeating his success of 9 years previous, followed home by teammate Tony Fowkes in a similar car. Paddy Hopkirk, this time driving a Citroën CX, took the final podium spot. 1993. Nick Britton, a competitor in the original event in a Lotus Cortina, established his company as an organizer of modern endurance rallies with a 25th anniversary rerun of the marathon in 1993. He persuaded 21 drivers who had competed in 1968 to return, including Andrew Cowan and Roger Clark, and altogether 106 teams from 17 countries entered. Cowan drove the same car as the first time, having his Hillman Hunter loaned to him by the Scottish Automobile Club Museum, while other competitors drove Preminus 1970-era cars. The entry fee was £12,900 and the estimated cost of participating was put at £45,000. The 16,000 km rally had three major differences to its ancestor. First, the changing political climate in the Middle East meant that several countries, such as Iran and Afghanistan, were now out of bounds, although in Europe, Turkey, and Australia much of the original route was retraced. Also, the old scheduled open road sections were replaced with more modern timed special stages for safety reasons. Finally, with the demise of the great passenger liners, there would be no great voyage across the Indian Ocean to Australia, Britain instead negotiating for two Antonov An-124 cargo planes to take the vehicles to Australia. The winning driver was Francis Tuthill in a Porsche 911, ahead of the Ford Falcon GT of Ian Vaughan, who finished third in 1968. Kenny's Mike Kirkland, a stalwart of the Safari Rally, took the final place on the podium in a Peugeot 504. 2000. A second rerun was organized in 2000 as a millennium celebration of the first epic event. Again, much of Asia was inaccessible for political reasons, with two airlifts instead of the single one of 1993. Now, after crossing Europe and Turkey in the first 14 days, the competitors would be loaded onto the Antonovs for the trip to northern Thailand. Of the 100 starters who left London, 78 reached Sydney, with Stig Blomqvist and Ben Rainsford scoring victory ahead of Michel Mountain in a Porsche 911, whose co-driver was 1993 winner Francis Tuthill. Rick Bates and Jenny Britton in another 911 took third. 2004. The third rerun was a combination of modern group and showroom class cars and Preminus 1977 classics, all limited to two-wheel drive and a sub-2-liter engine. New Zealand, in tandem with Lincolnshire, England race preparation specialists Langworth Motorsport, scored a 1-2-3 podium clean sweep with three QE-piloted Honda Integras overall winners Joe McAndrew and Murray Cole, runners-up Mike Montgomery and Roy Wilson, and Shane Merland and John Benton in third. The highest-placed classic car was a Ford Escort RS 1600 driven by Britain's Anthony Ward and Mark Soloway, which finished sixth overall. 2014. 10 years later, a sixth marathon was run. Differing from its five predecessors, it was run in the reverse direction, starting in Sydney and travelling to London with an airlift linking the west coast of Australia. Winners by year.